Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show. My name is Leon Jones, and tonight's topic, I'm going to talk about political parties, what they are, and how they were formed. Now, here in the United States, we use the two-party system, the Republicans and the Democrats. You can tell by looking at the background behind me, the donkey, that's the Democrat. The Republicans are the elephant. Now, there are other small parties in the United States, like the Green Party, the Socialist Party, the Constitutional Party, the Libertarian Party. But basically, here in the United States, we only focus on two parties. Now, there used to be another party back in I'm going to say the 18th and the 19th century, known as the Whig Party. But what is a party? A political party? Basically, a political party is an organization. And I'm just going to paraphrase it, where you get individuals who have a common ideology. Now, if you look at the system that we have today in America, all of the levels of government here in the United States follow the two-party system. That's your state, your local, and your federal government. Now, when we deal with parties, let me give a little more insight. We talk about an organization. And again, a political party is an organization that coordinates candidates to compete in elections and participate in governance. The members of a political party generally share similar ideas about government and policy, and that's similar to what I just presented. Now, you have roles and functions of a political party. You have contesting elections and electing officials. This is a primary function of a political party. They nominate and campaign for candidates who will represent in today's platform, and if elected, exercise political power. Then you have providing a party label. Now, the shared party label helps voters make informed choices by acting as a simplifying heuristic or mental shortcut to judge a candidate's positions without needing to research each one individually. Then you have organizing governance. Basically, in legislatures, political parties encourage cooperation amongst their members to streamline the political decision-making process. Then you have informing the public. Parties communicate their policy, priorities, and political values to the public. Then you have your recruiting and training candidates. Parties identify and prepare potential candidates to run for public office. Then we have serving as a linkage institution. And basically that says political parties act as a link between citizens and the government, helping to convert public opinions into viable policy options. Now, you have types of political parties. And basically, there are political scientists have identified several types of parties based on their structure and evolution. You have the elite parties. Historically dominant in the 19th century, these parties had minimal loose organization and they were funded by a small number of monetary contributions. They gave little priority to expanding their membership base. Then you have mass parties. These developed to mobilize ordinary citizens and arose from societal divisions like those between classes. Funded by their large memberships, they are more centralized than elite parties. Then you have your Big Ten or your catch-all parties. It's a product of the mid-20th century. These parties reduced their ideological baggage to attract support from a wider section of the population. Then you have the cartel parties. Emerging in the late 20th century, these parties rely heavily on state financing. They are often criticized by established parties, making it difficult for new parties to enter the political system. And again, you're talking about the Southern Party, the Socialist Party, the Communist Party, the Constitutional Party, and the Libertarian Party. And then you have the niche parties. Now, these parties focus on a specific but often limited set of interests or issues, such as environmentalism or nationalism, rather than the broader economic left right divide. Then there are party systems. Now, the number and viability of political parties in a country shape its overall party system. Now, we have nonpartisan systems. Now, in these rare systems, political parties do not exist or are not a major part of politics. Some nonpartisan countries have banned parties to protect authoritarian rule, while others are small democracies where parties aren't basically parties simply aren't important parts of politics. Again, in the nonpartisan systems, these are very rare. Now, you have some nonpartisan countries that have basically band together to protect the authoritarian rule. Talking about areas where you have communism and socialism, while others are small democracies where parties simply aren't an important part of politics. And then you have one party systems. Now, in a one party state, a single political party holds power and may ban all other competing parties. Then there's the dominant party systems or partocracies. While other parties may be permitted, one party consistently maintains the power in this system. And you have the two party and the multi party systems. Democracies most often feature two party or multi party systems, and the number of viable parties is influenced by a country's electoral system. Now, contemporary trends in the United States. Well, increasing number of independents as of July 2025, this year. 41% of the Americans today have identified as independents, though most lean toward one of the two major parties. The percentage of Americans identifying as independent has generally trended upward over the last decade. Then you have a balanced electorate. In 2025, most Americans were almost evenly split between identifying with or leaning toward the Democratic Party at 45% and the Republican Party at 46%. And then you have the persistent polarization. Now, data published in September 2025, which is last month, indicates continued partisan splits on key political issues. Now, again, what I'm doing tonight is giving you an overall education on the two-party system and how politics works. Now, I mentioned in the opening part of this video why you have public opinion. You have organizers who are doing the work for people who don't want to research. Now, I disagree with that. You should do your research on all of the candidates, because even if you vote Republican, if the Democrats take over, we're going to be under their majority party rule, and vice versa. You should understand how they vote and why they vote, and you should participate in town halls. Now, there are not too many people here in this sector doing education on how the parties work. But I'm doing it because I want you all to be very informed on what's going on between today's Democrats and today's Republicans. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to talk about the political parties. Now, some of this data may be old, goes back to 2008, but Political parties did exist 17 years ago. So, when we deal with political parties, what is the meaning of a party? Well, political party is a team of men and women seeking to control the governing apparatus by gaining office in a duly constituted election. Now, parties can be thought of in three parts: party in the electorate, party as an organization, and of course, party in government. Now, the task of the parties, well, the linkage institution. That is the channels through which people's concerns become political issues on a government's policy agenda. And what do parties do? Parties pick candidates, parties will run candidates, parties give cues to voters, parties articulate policies, and parties coordinate policy making. Well, that's supposed to happen, but if you look at today's Democrats, they're really trying to beat everybody over the head to be woke, to believe in this authoritarian system by using reverse psychology, thinking that it's everybody on the right doing it, when it is the left. And they're doing it through the media. Now, parties, voters, and policy, the Downs model. Now you have rational choice theory. It assumes that individuals act in their own best interest, weighing the cost and benefits of possible alternatives. Now you have the Downs model. Voters maximize chances that policies they favor are adopted by the government. Parties want to win elected office. Why? Because the winning party becomes the party in power for that term. Now you have the Downs model. And this is where you look at the ideology. The top, it tells you where most people are. Number 4, most people are moderate. Then you have on the left and the right, really, if you look at the percentage of the electorate, the extreme left and extreme right, they're basically opposite sides of the same coin. But this is where most of the people are. This is right around, I'm going to say 35%. Now, this data was done back in 2004, but I guarantee there are a lot of individuals today who are moderate. Now, some of us might slightly bend to the left or slightly bend to the right, but most individuals who are realistic are moderate. Now, a party in the electorate, party image, a voter's perception of what Republicans or Democrats stand for. Party identification, a citizen's self-proclaimed preference for one party or the other, Republican, Democrat, or Independent. Ticket splitting, voting with one party for one office and with another party for other offices. Now, independents are most likely to split tickets. No state or race is completely safe due to split tickets. Well, if you look at the party identification, now this is right around 52 years old. It tells you how many Democrats and Republicans we had from 1952 to 2004. And you look at it from 1952, if you look at the Democrats, they've really decreased. Now, the Republicans are pretty stagnant, but now you have a lot more independents. You look at that graph. Now, the Dixiecrats were your Ku Klux Klan and your other elected officials back in the early 20th century to mid 20th century. Democrats are the party of the Klan. The Republicans are a younger party. And then you had the Whig Party, but you have independents. Now, within the independents, like Bernie Sanders, he typically votes with the Democrats, but he's an independent. let's move on. All right, the party's organization from the grassroots to Washington. These are the people that work for the party, local parties, party machines. It's a type of political party organization that relies heavily on material inducements to win votes and to govern. Patronage. It's a job, promotion, or contract given for political reasons rather than merit used by political party machines. Due to progressive reforms, urban party organizations are generally weak. Revolution, or let's say the revitalization, that's the revitalization of party organization at county level, which is basically your local level as well. The 50 state party systems. Well, we have closed primaries. Only people who have registered with the party can vote for that party's candidates. Open primaries. Voters decide on election day whether they want to vote in the Democrat or Republican primary. Then we have blanket primaries. Voters are presented with a list of candidates from all parties. And then state parties are better organized in terms of headquarters and budgets more today than they used to be. The national party organizations. Well, we have the National Convention, the meeting of party delegates every 4 years to choose a presidential ticket and a party's platform. That's the meeting of political delegates. It happens every 4 years to choose a presidential ticket and the party's platform. Just had one for the Republicans. Now in 2028, we're going to have, we actually had conventions for both parties. So we'll have them again. The Democratic convention will be first. They always alternate each 4 years. And you also have the National Committee, one of the institutions that keeps the party operating between conventions. Then a national chairperson, basically responsible for day-to-day activities of the party. The national chairperson is responsible for day-to-day activities of the party. The party and government promises and policy. Well, party members actually elected the government. Well, which party controls government has policy consequences. We have a coalition. It's basically a group of individuals with a common interest, which every political party depends. Now, parties and politicians generally act on their campaign promises. Well, not necessarily true. A lot of your established individuals. Again, I'm gonna use a term I made up: led. Lies, emotion, assumptions, and deception. That's what I mean. Get the lead out of your ass. That's what lead stands for. I created that acronym. Lies, emotion, assumption, and deception. That's the promises you get from establishment politicians. Okay, then you have, you might not be able to see it, but this is the party and government's promises and policies. Now, party eras in American history. Well, historical periods in which a majority of votes cling to the party in power. Then you have a critical election, an electoral earthquake where new issues and new coalitions emerge. Party realignment. That's the displacement of the majority party by the minority party, usually during a critical election. Now, from 1796 to 1824, the first party system, Madison warned of factions. Federalist, first political party. Then from 1828 to 1856, Jackson and the Democrats versus the Whigs, modern party founded by Jackson. Whigs formed mainly to oppose Jacksonian Democrats. from 1860 to 1928, the two Republican eras. Republicans rose as the anti-slavery party. 1896 election centered around industrialization. Then from 1932 to 1964, the New Deal coalition. The New Deal coalition, forged by the Democrats, consisted of urban, working class, ethnic groups, Catholics, Jews, the poor, and Southerners. And now you can look at party eras in American history. Now, if you look at the blue, that's the Democrats. If you look at the red, that's Republicans. Now, let me show you something. You look at blacks, African Americans. Now, if you look at this bar graph, African Americans make up roughly 65% of the Democratic Party on this graph, and roughly 5% of the Republican Party. Now, if you look at the Hispanics, yes, more of the Hispanics make up the Democratic Party, but they have a higher percentage of Republicans in the Republican Party than the African Americans. I'm talking about the Hispanics. Now you look at the Jewish. The Jewish make up most of the Democratic Party as well, just like African Americans do. But they also have a not sizable, but it is smaller than the Hispanic percentage of the Republican Party participants. But if you look at the white Catholics, it's almost tied. It's almost 50-50. If you look at the white evangelical Christians, well, they're more Republican than Democrats. Then income. Most of the individuals who are poor, who have low income, mainly vote Democrat. Females vote Democrat more than Republican. However, in this graph, not by much. And if you look at the males, now this is because you have the white Catholics and the white evangelicals, the white folks. Now, if you look at the female, what's driving the female Democrats is you have a lot of African American females and Hispanic females as well. Then you look at over 65 years old, that's also driving it, mainly Democrats. And if you look at under 30 years old, so that's why you get a large portion of the electorate was Democrats because of certain groups and where certain groups are economically. And also you have to look at the education and where they are. And I'm talking about, are they in the rural, the country, or are they in the urban area, the suburban area? Now, from 1968 to the present, the era of divided party government. Divided government. One party controls Congress and the other controls White House. Divided government due in party to party de-alignment. Disengagement of people from parties is evidenced by shrinking party identification. Then you have party neutrality. People are indifferent toward two parties. And again, here are the partisan divisions on the key House roll call votes in 2004. One of them, you talk about the resolution for the Iraq war, tax cuts, the yeses and the nos. This is the Democrats. Extension of unemployment benefits, and this is how you know they're partisan. See, the Democrats voted 187 yes and no nos. Well, the Republicans voted 39 yes and 179 no's. Resolution for the Iraq war. Republicans, 222 yeses, 2 no's. Democrats were almost split. And then you have transportation spending. Well, both parties were pretty close. Then you have limiting discretionary federal spending. You know, the Democrats don't want any federal spending. Extending tax cuts. The Democrats really didn't want that either. Corporate tax overhaul. The Democrats, no, they didn't want it. So that shows you right from this information that I've given you why you have the parties the way they are. And it comes down to ideology, where people vote. And it shows you that the Democrats really have the individuals who are your poor and uneducated. Not saying that the Republicans don't, not saying that there aren't Republicans on these programs, but the Democrats vote more on programs than the Republicans do. And the Democrats are, today's Democrats, they're basically, when I say progressive, they're against everything traditional. That's why you have the battle today. And that's what's going on, because basically today the parties are very divided, and there's a lot more hate today than in 2004. Party errors in the American history. Well, if you look at the government right here on this map, the yellow is Republican control, the purple is Democratic control. And these are generally the states that, and this is not necessarily a true map. This is when Obama was running, because I live here in Indiana, and Indiana is controlled by mainly Republicans. Now you can see over the last 2 decades, now this map, if it were updated, you would see more red on this map. Now, third parties. So when you start getting into the Socialist Party, the Constitution Party, the Southern Party, the Communist Party, well, their impact on American politics. Third parties, electoral contenders, other than the two parties, rarely win elections. That's because of the money situation. That's why. I mean, I know here in Indiana, there have been gubernatorial races where they were 3 people. And then the Democrat, whether it was Eric Holcomb and Eric Bye, the Democrat or the Republican has always won, because again, a lot of money goes into the Democrats and the Republicans. And third parties are important. Tell you why. Well, if you go back to 1992, Ross Perot got 15% of the vote, which took some of the voting away from George Bush. That's why Clinton won. And again, this is why third parties are important, because there are safety valves for popular discontent. Also bring new groups and ideas into politics. And then you have the 2-party system. And the problem with the 2-party system is they're all wrapped up in the money, no term limits, and it's supposed to discourage extreme views. Not true. Democratic left has a lot of extreme views, and a 2-party system contributes to political ambiguity. Multi-party systems in other countries, like Canada, winner-take-all system. Legislative seats awarded only to first-place finishers. Proportional representation. Legislative seats awarded based on votes received by the party. More votes, more seats. Then you have the coalition government. 2 or more parties join to form a majority in a national legislature. Understanding political parties. Well, parties are essential elements of democracy. Which we are not a democracy. We're a democratic republic. If we were a democracy, the majority would rule in everything. So we're not a democracy. We might have some elements of democracy. We are a republic. Remember that. And again, parties are essential elements of a democracy. democracy and responsible party government, responsible party model. Parties have distinct comprehensive programs. Candidates are committed to the program. Major party must carry out its program. The majority party must accept responsibility. American political parties do fall short of these conditions, and there is no mechanism for party discipline. The American political parties and the scope of government. Again, lack of uniformity keeps government small. Big programs like healthcare in 1994 failed. However, it was rammed through in 2010 with no Republican votes by the Democrats when Obama was president. But understanding the political parties also makes cutting government programs difficult. Well, Trump has shrunk some of the government programs, and even he's cut federal government workers. So basically, the individuals focus on getting more from government for their own constituents. Well, that sounds true, but who are the constituents? Big donors. See, in politics, basically, you need an issue, you need to be well funded, and you need to be well organized. And this is the problem with Black people. We're none of those. So basically, Black people have been following the Democratic Party because their whole scope is on living off of government. Understanding political parties is the party over. Political parties are no longer the main source of information for voters. Media are, well, depends on what type of media. Social media is, but mainstream media isn't, because mainstream media is corrupt. Yet parties will play an important role, but diminished role in American politics. State and national party organizations have become more visible and active. Now, the majority of people still identify with a party. That's very true. And again, in a summary, parties are a pervasive linkage institution in American politics, party and electorate, government, and as an organization. America does have a two-party system, and the decentralized nature of political parties makes major change difficult and encourages individualism in policies or in politics. Again, the decentralized nature of political parties makes major change difficult and encourages individualism in politics. Well, gotta disagree with that too. You have to amend the Constitution if you want term limits. That's a major change. But you have so many individuals who don't want major change. But to sum all of this up, when we get into political parties, again, political party is an organization that coordinates candidates to compete in elections. Again, I said complete. Well, you need to compete and you need to complete the election as well. But again, a political party is an organization that coordinates candidates to compete in elections and participate in governance. The members of a political party generally share similar ideas about government and policy. Now, let me give you the key roles and functions again, consisting basically, you contest elections and the election of officials. This is the primary function of a political party. They nominate and campaign for candidates who will represent the party's platform and, if elected, exercise political power. Providing a political label. Correction, that's providing a party label, which it's going to be political. They're going to get into politics, but you have a party label. Providing a party label. The shared party label helps voters make informed choices by acting as simplifying heuristic or mental shortcut to judge a candidate's positions without needing to research each one individually. You should research your candidates because you want to see how they are on the campaign trail. Number of politicians lie. Again, lead, lie, emotion, assumption, and discipline. A correction. Almost messed up my own acronym. Lie, emotion, assumption, and delusion and deception. Delusion and deception. That's what lead stands for. Then you have your organized governance. In legislatures, political parties encourage cooperation amongst the members to streamline the political decision-making process. Informing the public. Informing the public. Informing the public. Parties communicate their policy, priorities, and political values to the public. Recruiting and training candidates. Parties identify and prepare potential political candidates to run for office. Parties identify and prepare potential political candidates to run for public office. Also serving as a linkage institution, political parties act as a link between citizens and the government by helping to convert public opinions into viable options. Then you have types of political parties. Political scientists have identified several different types of parties based on their structure and evolution. Elite parties, historically dominant in the 19th century, these parties had minimal loose organization and were funded by a small number of large monetary contributions. They gave little priority to expanding their membership base. Mass priorities, these developed to mobilize ordinary citizens and arose from societal divisions like those between social classes funded by their large memberships. They are more centralized than elite parties. Catch-all parties or big tent parties, a product of the mid-20th century. These parties reduced their ideological baggage to attract support from a wider section of the population. Then you had the cartel parties emerging in the late 20th century. These parties rely heavily on state financing. They are often characterized by established parties, making it difficult for new parties to enter the political system. And you have your niche parties. Your niche parties. These parties focus on a specific, often limited set of interests or issues, such as environmentalism or nationalism, rather than the broader economic left-right divide. Then you have your party systems, and basically the number and viability of political parties in a country shape its overall party system. Non-party systems, again, in these rare systems, political parties do not exist or are not a major part of politics. Some nonpartisan countries have banned parties to protect authoritarian rule, while others are small democracies where parties simply aren't an important part of politics. Then you have one-party systems. In a one-party state, a single political party holds power and may ban all other competing parties. Then you have your dominant party systems and your I call them your partocracies. And basically, with a partocracy, while other parties may be permitted, one party consistently maintains power in the system. And then you have two-party and multi-party systems, and that's when democracies most often feature one party or two-party or multi-party systems. Again, in the two-party and multi-party system, democracies most often feature two-party or multi-party systems, and the number of viable parties is influenced by a country's electoral system. Then again, and this has happened this year, contemporary trends in the United States, where today you have an increasing number of independents. As of July of this year, 2025, 41% of Americans have identified themselves as independents, though most lean toward one of the two political parties. Again, almost half of the American population, as of July of this year, they identify with being an independent. However, they have leaned toward one or one of the two major parties. And that's most. Most have lean toward one of the two major political parties. And again, the percentage of Americans identifying as independent has generally trended upward over the last decade. And then we have the balanced electorate. In July of this year, Americans were almost evenly split between identifying with a leaning towards Democratic Party at 45% and the Republican Party at 46%. And then we have persistent polarization. Data published last month of this year, September 2025, indicates continued partisan splits on key political issues. Now, again, I just wanted to bring you this information so you can understand how the political parties work. And you need education so you can be a more informed voter, because what we have today are individuals who are not informed. They get all their information from the mainstream media, and you have a lot of pundits on both sides. And of course, they're going to cheer for their party, but these pundits don't really know what's good for the average American people. But the average American people, they don't do enough research. A number of them take the ball and run with it because they're either too busy or too lazy. So I'm just going to say this: get educated so you can be an informed voter, and always research the candidates. I don't care if it's 100, research them all. You have to find the best candidate that's going to suit you, because if the majority votes for the wrong candidate, like you look at Malcolm Romney, you end up with a government that you don't want, an authoritarian type of government. And we're going to wait to see what New York is going to look like, because Eric Adams is gone. You have other states. We talk about one party rule. Maryland, one party rule. Illinois, one party rule. California, one party rule. The whole Northeast, one party rule. Now here in Indiana, we got one party rule here. It goes the other way. Texas, Florida. So generally, people vote based on the culture and their belief system, whether it's religion or economics. You get the government you deserve, but you always want to be an informed voter, because people who succeed, they're going to do the research. But unfortunately, in this country, we have a lot of lazy people, and lazy people vote. But you want to outnumber the lazy people, because lazy people are only voting for lies, emotion, assumption, and deception/delusion. But in the end, we are not a democracy. We are a democratic, well, we are a republic, a constitutional republic. If you understand how this country works, then you will become a much more informed voter, because we need more smart people to put the right individuals in office, because this country is slowly going down the drain. Here's my question: you want freedom, or you want authoritarianism? Because if you want freedom, freedom is always worth fighting for. Authoritarianism always keep you on a plantation. And when you're on a plantation, you're a slave. You're always controlled. When you have freedom, you think for yourself. You always be red pill, and you always know how the system works. And that's the difference. And also, you got to be truthful. Finally, I'll say this: Number of people vote on emotion. They don't even know what they're voting for. But in the end, you have to understand what you want out of this country. This country comes with culture. But right now, it's good versus evil. But usually, in the end, the good always triumphs. Why? Because truth is always to set you free. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some STEM content, which I have my videos either tomorrow or Thursday on the STEM channel, again, talk about subjects like engineering, IT, calculus, biology. Well, on that channel, I give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Now, here's where you can find me. Here on the 411 Talk Zone radio show, you can find me right here on YouTube, X formerly Twitter. You can also find me on Rumble and Truth Social. Again, so the QCIS channel. On that channel, I'll give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. You can find me on YouTube, X formerly Twitter, and LinkedIn. And again, for all of you individuals out here who are offended, or if you're not offended, and also don't be envious of what somebody else has. Understand that you're still living and everybody's not going to be at the same spot. But I will tell you this, always be blessed with what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Always know that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And if it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, then change it. Once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.